Syrian forces set to deploy along the Turkish border to help the Kurds fend off Ankara's military offensive as the United States plans to pull troops from the region have already pulled way back. Now nearly 30 House GOP lawmakers plan to slap sanctions on Turkey, including our next guest. Joining us now is Congresswoman Liz Cheney, highest-ranking woman in the Republican House, the House GOP conference. Congresswoman, so what do you think sanctions will do?
Well, good morning, Brian. I think it's crucially important for the Turks to understand that there is broad bipartisan support here in Washington, D.C., that they've got to stop this incursion. We've got to be in a situation where we are very focused on the over 6, it seems, high-value ISIS prisoners. We do not want them to return. We do not want a resurgence of ISIS. President Trump's actions to defeat the caliphate were very important. But we've got to recognize the importance of making sure that we maintain our presence there. What we were doing on the northern border was exactly what we should be doing, with a small number of U.S. forces, air superiority, and working closely with our allies, the Kurds. And the Turks should have been warned that if they came in, they would face consequences, particularly from the air, and they've got to get out.
Congresswoman, the president's got to start using his experts. His Secretary of Defense left in the dark. His National Security Advisor couldn't possibly have recommended this. Now there are 1,000 ISIS fighters that have evidently out of prison, 250 ISIS brides. The Syrian Kurds have now been forced to ally with Russia and Assad at the border. And Erdogan, a NATO ally, has not only gone in, he's gone over 20 miles inside. And our guys have backed out. How concerned are you about our profile overseas and for our future allies?
I'm very concerned about it, Brian. I think that what we're seeing happen is going to have ramifications not just in the Middle East, but around the world. If our adversaries begin to sense weakness, if our adversaries begin to think that we won't defend our allies, that we won't defend our interests, that's provocative. But I also want to say that the impeachment proceedings that are going on and what the Democrats are doing themselves to try to weaken this president is part of this. It was not an accident that the Turks chose this moment to roll across the border. And I think the Democrats have got to pay very careful attention to the damage that they're doing with the impeachment proceedings.
Congressman, presidents make mistakes. You make decisions. We threw it through time from FDR to JFK to Ronald Reagan. Makes mistakes. President could easily say, I took Erdogan at his word that he would not do what he exactly did. Could we reestablish a no-fly zone? Could we put more troops? We put 1,000 to Saudi Arabia. Could we try to reestablish and create some type of buffer zone, or is that ship sailed?
Yes, I think we could immediately. I think that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs called the Turks and said, that's it. I'm taking back air superiority. We will not allow you to use your jets, to use your planes to conduct the kinds of massacres that we're seeing on the ground. That would have a very significant impact. And I think it's very important that we do that. We cannot have a situation where ISIS is resurgent. That's the bottom line. And the Kurds obviously have been a tremendous ally for us. If we abandon them in this way, it'll be very difficult to establish alliances in the future, and we need those to avoid having to deploy massive numbers of U.S. forces on the ground.
What I can't stomach is members of the Obama administration who didn't enforce the red line, who called ISIS the JV team, who pulled all our troops out of Iraq, now condemning the president. They're the ones who have no right to say a word because that caused this mess, because they ignored it.
Absolutely. I mean, look, if you look at the mess that President Trump inherited, it was a mess that was created by the Obama administration's unwillingness to defend against ISIS, because they looked the other way, because they allowed ISIS to establish a caliphate, because President Obama withdrew too soon. We can't repeat those mistakes, but they also, I think, ought to sit down and recognize that they caused this problem that that we've now got to solve.
And now you, amongst leadership, will be leading the way on the House side, and Lindsey Graham on the other side, and you have some Democrats to support you there.
Exactly.
Congresswoman, thanks for getting up with us.